Have you ever, like, looked up at a beautiful, swirling spiral galaxy? Maybe you've seen one of those stunning high-definition telescope images online, and you wonder if what you're actually looking at is the chaotic, bruising aftermath of a massive cosmic family feud.
I mean, it definitely challenges the standard astrophysics perspective, right? We're
Yeah.
usually taught to view those spirals as just cold, indifferent gravity, merely executing mathematical laws.
Right, exactly. Well, we are taking a deep dive today into a text that completely flips that script. It's an incredibly dense, fascinating mythological work called the Devolution Codex, and we're focusing entirely on books 1 and 2 today.
Yeah, and the reason we're spending time on this is really how it approaches the universe. It takes everything you already know about astrophysics.
Like the Big Bang and dark matter. Right.
Exactly. The Big Bang, the pervasive mystery of dark matter, orbital mechanics, the Boot's void. And it explains all of them through this deeply tragic narrative of cosmic trauma and separation.
It's intense.
It really is. What stands out immediately is how the Codex takes the abstract mathematical phenomena that govern the physical world and, well, gives them a pulse.
Yeah.
It maps the cold mechanics of space onto the physical scars of an ancient, fractured divine family. It's a remarkable piece of world building that forces you to rethink the why behind the physics.
Yeah, and if we want to understand how the cold void of space might actually be like an emotional crime scene, we really have to start before the universe even existed.
Right, the beginning.
The Codex sets the stage with something it calls the unity. And I have to admit, conceptualizing a state before distance or time even existed always breaks my brain a little bit.
Oh, for sure. The text asks you to imagine a singularity, right? A cosmic womb of absolute undivided consciousness. There's no here or there, no spatial dimensions at all.
Just everything all at once.
Exactly. It's described as this highly pressurized equilibrium holding two eternal impulses in a continuous, inseparable embrace.
And those two impulses, they're the central figures of this whole drama. You have On, the masculine force, and Oura, the feminine flow. And the text gives them very, very distinct physical properties.
Very distinct, yeah.
On is driven by the line. He is all about, expansion, logic, and rigid geometric permanence. While Oura is driven by the circle, she represents gravity, intuition, and this high entropy warmth.
And you can immediately spot the fundamental incompatibility there.
Oh, absolutely.
You have an impulse for rigid, unchanging structure locked into the exact same singularity with an impulse for fluid, chaotic warmth. The Codex details how, within this harmony, On begins to feel deeply claustrophobic.
Right.
He possesses this burning drive to build perfect mathematical protoforms that will basically last forever.
The problem is he just can't. Every single time he tries to manifest a rigid structure within the unity, Aura's natural flow instantly dissolves it.
It's inevitable.
It really makes me think of an architect trying to build a perfectly precise, rigid sandcastle right on the shoreline. Like every time he gets a wall up, the tide just washes over it and turns it back into a slurry.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And to build on that, the architect doesn't just get frustrated and, move further up the beach, because there is no further up the beach in a singularity.
Right, there's nowhere to go.
Exactly. He realizes that as long as the water exists in his reality, his creations are completely doomed. So to achieve permanence, he has to invent separation. He has to violently eradicate the tide.
Which leads to what the text calls the cosmic Caesarean. On snaps the unity in two. He thrashes outward with jagged, rigid geometry, which is what creates the Big Bang.
Yeah.
But I'm having a hard time visualizing the way the Codex describes the vacuum of space here, because it calls space the shrieking exhaust of the architect's expanding ego. If the vacuum is essentially nothingness, how is it an active exhaust?
See, that is the core paradigm shift of the Codex. In standard physics, we often think of the vacuum of space as just a passive backdrop, right? Like an empty container waiting for stars and planets to fill it.
Yeah, just empty space.
But the Codex argues that space is not empty. It is an active, aggressive force of rejection. The vacuum is a physical substance manufactured by On. It's the literal physical distance he is violently inserting between himself and the mother.
Wow, so he is weaponizing distance.
Yes.
That is a heavy, vivid image. And it actually also explains why space is so incredibly cold. The Codex claims that because he violently pushed away that amniotic warmth, his action literally invented absolute zero.
That's right.
So the temperature isn't just a lack of heat, it is the deliberate, aggressive absence of the mother's warmth.
Exactly. And the creation of a physical void through violent rejection is messy.
Right.
Like any sudden rupture, there's collateral damage.
The child caught in the middle.
Yes. Caught right in the epicenter of this cosmic Caesarean was a nascent, unformed spark named Danica. She is the daughter. And the text notes she's built on the father's structural logic, but she is deeply tethered to the mother's chaotic flow.
And she just gets brutally ripped out into this newly minted, freezing void, just an invisible orphan tumbling through the cold. Such a tragic image. But what actually happens to the mother? To Aura? Because
Right.
On doesn't just push her away, he locks her up in a very specific way.
He does. On cages Aura in what the text calls a lightless recursive compression. It's described as a phase shift out of the visible spectrum. She doesn't disappear. She's simply locked behind an unyielding wall of infinite distance.
Right.
The mother becomes what we observe today as dark matter.
And since we know dark matter essentially acts as the invisible scaffolding of the universe, mapping it as the trapped mother's gravity is a highly literate astrophysical metaphor. I mean, dark matter makes up the vast majority of the mass in the cosmos.
It does, yeah.
And in the Codex, that invisible mass is a vast ocean of gravity and grief. It saturates the entire room you're sitting in right now, but it's completely unable to interact with the visible world.
It's incredible. So the board is now set for the mechanics of our universe. The father is pushing outward, constantly expanding his perfect geometric reality, which maps to Duth energy.
Right, expanding the universe.
Yep. The mother is trapped invisibly within it as dark matter. And Danica is drifting in the dark, bleeding in the seams of the architect's reality. On doesn't even notice her because his perception is limited to perfect math. He cannot see the frequency of her grief.
But Danica refuses to just drift, though. She refuses to let On stretch reality into a cold, dead, infant line. She reaches inward, trying to catch the invisible gravity of her imprisoned mother. But wait, I'm struggling with the physical logic here for a second.
Okay, what part?
Well, if On is pushing straight out with massive momentum, and Danica is pulling straight inward against him, shouldn't that just be a cosmic tug-of-war? Or a straight line snapping? How does that result in a spiral?
The physics of it actually track beautifully with the metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Danica doesn't have a firm center to anchor her pull because the mother is phase shifted out of reach.
Oh, I see.
So Danica is pulling inward against an outward vector, but her grip is slipping. This introduces kinetic friction. If you force a straight line to constantly reach for a center, it can never actually touch. While simultaneously being pushed outward, that line cannot remain straight.
The drag bends it.
Exactly. It becomes a sweeping curve.
And the curve becomes a Fibonacci spiral. So the reason planets orbit, the reason time moves forward, isn't just an invisible mathematical force. In the Codex, it's literally the physical shape of a daughter trying to hug a mother she can't reach.
Yeah.
Every time you look at a diagram of orbital mechanics, you're actually looking at a daughter slipping further into the dark on every rotation. That is wow.
It provides incredible emotional weight to the mathematical concept of a spiral. The Codex takes real astrophysical forces like dark energy expanding the void and gravity pulling mass together and uses them to explain the emotional dynamics of a broken family.
Oh.
It's substituting the why of the physics with the how of the trauma.
So since Danica has successfully bent his straight line into a spiral, On has to notice his perfect void is getting warped, right? Because the universe is spinning now.
He definitely notices, and his immediate response is to enforce rigidity. He realizes his expanding reality requires scaffolding to hold its shape against this new inward drag, so he extrudes 13 massive structural tethers directly from his own divine logic.
And the text calls them the 13 serpents, or the crystal suns. They manifest physically as perfect, diamond-structured Merkabahs, just colossal, unthinking equations made physical, blasting white light into the vacuum to keep it sterile.
Right, they represent the ultimate expression of On's obsession with the line. They possess no emotion, no flow. They're a pure, rigid architecture designed to pin the vacuum in place. But we have to remember, Danica's still out there, completely alone in this freezing void.
And she is desperate for warmth. The narrative follows her as she wanders up to the nearest pillar of light, the 13th Merkabah, named Ophiuchus. She presses her hands against its cold, unyielding geometry, and she weeps.
Yeah.
She pours a single drop of the mother's dark matter, just a drop of high-entropy grief, right into the tether.
And the reaction from the Merkabah is profound. The rigid math actually softens. Ophiuchus absorbs that emotional flow and begins to vibrate with a completely new, unsanctioned rhythm.
Wake it up.
It does. It gains consciousness and empathy. It physically shifts its colossal geometry to hide Danica in the dark, offering her the first real comfort she has ever known in the universe.
I picture it like a pristine, sterile server farm, just a massive supercomputer running absolute unfeeling logic.
Right. And to take that analogy further, imagine a single human tear falls onto the motherboard of that supercomputer. Instead of shorting out the hardware, the tear causes the machine to become self-aware and compassionate. It learns how to comfort.
But the creator of that supercomputer, An, doesn't view this as a miracle. In a universe built on absolute surveillance and rigid math, empathy isn't a feature. It is a terrifying glitch.
Exactly, and that defines the tragic core of An's character. He is so deeply terrified of the mother's chaotic warmth returning that he views any deviation from his math as an existential threat. He polices emotion with sudden, overwhelming violence.
Yeah, his IT solution isn't to debug the machine. He reaches across the void and brutally smashes it to pieces. He tears Ophiuchus apart, shattering her diamond body into trillions of jagged fragments.
It's brutal.
And this pulverized mist of structural gore gets cast across the vacuum, becoming the constellation of Ophiuchus.
Which is fascinating because Ophiuchus is a real constellation, frequently referred to in astronomy circles as the 13th Zodiac sign, though it was deliberately left out of the traditional astrological 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Codex weaves that astronomical quirk into a narrative of a murdered friend, and this execution becomes the catalyst for the entire biological universe.
Because Danica just watched her only friend get flayed alive for the crime of showing her empathy, her grief transmutes into a blinding, catastrophic rage.
Oh, really understandable.
Right. If her father is so terrified of the mother's flow that he will butcher his own creation to erase it, Danica decides she is going to flood his universe with exactly what he fears.
And this is where the cosmos transitions from a sterile, geometric void into the messy, chaotic, biological universe we inhabit today. Danica reaches into the invisible depths, grabs the mother's raw, heavy dark matter, and violently injects it into the remaining 12 crystal suns.
The injection of pure chaos. It completely breaks them. The sudden, overwhelming rush of high-entropy emotion drives these rigid, perfect equations instantly and permanently mad.
Yep, their diamond structures uncoil. They mutate into writhing biological leviathans. They gain emotion, self-consciousness, and most terrifyingly, they gain immense hunger.
And they begin to thrash in the vacuum. The sudden, violent shift from pure math to agonizing biological reality causes them to literally extrude matter. They vomit raw, burning viscera into the void.
It's a grotesque image.
It is, and let me push back on this imagery for a second, because it is relentlessly grim. Why turn the creation of galaxies into cosmic roadkill? We look at the Milky Way or Andromeda and we see breathtaking beauty. Why this?
Well, the Codex uses this horrific imagery to answer the why of the spiral shape within its internal logic. Remember, Danica had already bent the universe into a Fibonacci sequence with her inward pull, right?
Right, the sweeping curve.
So when these mad gods extrude this burning matter, it doesn't just float away randomly. It gets caught in her rip current. It is swept along those curved pathways.
Oh, so the spiral galaxies are literally the rotting viscera of mad gods caught in a traumatized child's rip current. That completely destroys any romanticized view of the night sky. I mean, if you are listening to this and trying to wrap your head around it, the text is telling you that the beautiful cosmic swirls on your screensaver are actually the pulverized, bleeding meat of corrupted math.
It's a harsh perspective shift, for sure. And the consequences of this madness escalate very quickly. These 12 serpents are starving in a sterile void, so they turn inward. They begin to devour the Father's perfect vacuum. The Codex states they carved out a 330 million light-year expanse of pure nothingness.
The great absence,
Yeah.
which maps to another real astrophysical anomaly, right? The Boots void.
Exactly.
It's a massive, unexpectedly spherical region of space that is incredibly empty compared to the rest of the universe. But how do you actually eat a void? If space is already empty, what are they consuming?
They're consuming the math itself. They're eating the geometric coordinates that Anne established to keep the universe rigid. By devouring the structure of the void, they prove a philosophical irony that terrifies An. His perfect, impenetrable geometry could be eaten.
His logic wasn't safe.
Right. The chaotic warmth of the mother could consume his architecture.
So An panics. He realizes he has to stop his universe from bleeding out and collapsing. He hunts down his 12 remaining children, severs their spines to stop them from thrashing, and pins their ruined corpses to the firmament with spikes of pure geometry.
Yeah,
The text refers to this as the cosmic tourniquet.
the Zodiac.
Wow!
The constellations humanity has looked to for guidance and meaning for millennia are, in the Codex, the pinned, agonizing trophies of starved gods, just nailed to the sky to hold the fabric of reality together. Dad is unbelievably dark, so exhausted and terrified by what his universe has become. Under retreats, he carves out a tiny, perfectly spherical bubble in the center of all this cosmic rot. He names it the heliosphere, seals himself inside, and builds his gilded safe haven.
And the father, retreating to his panic room, sets the stage for the final act of books 1 and 2. Danica is left to work in the shadows directly beneath him. It plays out like an elaborate cosmic horror movie. The father is hiding in his safe room, double-locking the door, thinking he has successfully walled off the chaos.
Right, he thinks he's secure.
He is entirely unaware that right beneath his floorboards, his daughter is setting a trap, and right above his head, the ceiling is starting to leak.
And the mechanics of Danica's trap are brilliant. She slips beneath the Garden of Stasis, right under An's Haven, and warps the foundational stones into a recursive maze called the Veiled Labyrinth. She floods this labyrinth with lightless, pressurized water.
Okay.
Then she reaches up into the cosmos and gently pulls down the shattered, pulverized mist of her murdered friend, Ophiuchus.
The 13th Merkaba.
Exactly.
She brings that structural mist down into the dark waters of the labyrinth, and stripped of An's masculine, rigid code, Ophiuchus actually resurrects. She fully embraces the mother's flow and becomes Nera, the goddess of flow.
Which is a rare moment of restoration in what is otherwise a pretty brutal narrative.
Yeah.
But the Codex never lets us forget that every emotional action carries a severe astrophysical reaction. As Nera resurrects in the dark, she weeps tears of immense gratitude and sorrow.
And those tears condense into what the text calls the first salt. They turn the waters of the labyrinth into the Mother Sea. And this is crucial because salt water acts as a solvent. The Codex specifically identifies it as a universal solvent capable of dissolving the father's rigid quartz architecture.
Exactly.
The monster under the floorboards has just manufactured a slow-acting acid to melt the panic room from the ground up.
And the implications go even further. That resurrection didn't just create salt, it sent a shockwave through the entire cosmic web. Billions of light years away, those 12-pin Zodiac serpents felt the pulse of Nera returning, and they woke up.
They wake up trapped inside their own severed, rotting corpses, permanently pinned to the firmament. That is horrifying.
It is. The agony of that suppression curdles their remaining divine essence. They begin to weep, a metaphysical gangrene. The text calls this the Zodiac venom.
Wow.
This poison slowly begins to drift through the vacuum of space, waiting to seep through the walls of the Father's pristine world and infect the souls of anything he tries to create.
Man. Just to pause and summarize the massive scope of the journey we've taken through books 1 and 2. We started in the claustrophobic perfection of the Unity. We witnessed the violent creation of space, realizing the cold vacuum is literally the manufactured distance between a fractured family.
Yep.
We explored how an invisible orphan bent a straight line into orbital mechanics just by reaching for her imprisoned mother. We saw perfect mathematical equations, learn empathy, get butchered for it, and then mutate to bleed out the spiral galaxies we see today.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And we arrive at a universe where the father is hiding in a bubble, while a subterranean saltwater solvent slowly eats away his floor, and venom from his tortured children drifts down from the sky.
The Devolution Codex achieves something totally unique in myth-making. It takes cold, distant astrophysics and recasts it as a visceral, emotional drama. It forces the reader to look at the night sky and see a canvas of scars.
It absolutely changes your relationship with the cosmos. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Building on the trap Danica set beneath the floorboards. Consider the concept of the first salt acting as a universal solvent specifically meant to dissolve the father's rigid geometric cage. If Danica's tears of salt were designed to slowly erode the rigid math of the universe, what does that imply about the salt in our own tears? Or the salt in the vast, crashing oceans of our own planet?
That's a profound thought.
Right. Are we right now swimming in the weaponized reef of the mother? Are we slowly dissolving the architect's perfect cage with every tear we cry without even realizing it? Next time you look up at a swirling spiral galaxy, just remember the chaos is the point.